What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. The shit-kicker newspaper The Sun is actually gloating about the Boris Johnson victory, so I thought I would gloat with them. Because after the weekend we've had listening to these Remoaners crying, attacking each other and wishing Boris Johnson dead, I think it's about time we had a good gloat. And seems as though The Sun are doing it, we will have to look at theirs. The article is by Trevor Kavanagh, says let's cheer Boris Johnson's victory over Brexit hating fanatics who threatened our democracy. It's distasteful to gloat, especially at Christmas, as we scan a battlefield littered with the severed limbs and corpses of the loony left. This is surely a time for healing and forgiveness. Nah, the hell it is. This is precisely the time to gloat. Decent men and women of all political parties should glory in vanquishing a toxic threat to British democracy. Let's cheer a stunning victory over those foam-flecked, foul-mouthed fanatics who smeared 17.4 million Brexit voters as thick, racist Tory scum. Let's revel in the humiliation as we know it best. Politically correct, metropolitan elite, the moaning Remainers and their nagging tribune, the BBC. Boris's victory has not just put Jezza's momentum cult to the sword, it also skewered hypocrite lovies Tony Blair, John Major, Hugh Grant and Dominic Grieve. Whatever became of Philip Hammond, by the way. Along with Anna Suck-It-Up Soubry, Wilshie, they have all been swept into oblivion by Thursday's landslide. I don't know how he's managed to forget Jo Swinson out of that one. She is probably the biggest Remoaner out of them all, and she got kicked to the curb. How you forgot about her is incredible. I certainly gloated on hearing Dinosaur Michael Hessentime whimper, "We lost." Just days ago, the scale of this victory seemed unthinkable. No, not really, it didn't. I don't know where he's got that from. I always assumed that Boris would win and win comfortably. Granted, I wasn't so sure it would be like an 80-seat majority, but I knew he would win by a fair old margin. Let's be honest, it's Labour, it's Remoaners, Labour's Brexit policy, Jeremy Corbyn, the rest of them, momentum, leftist lunatics on Twitter, leftist lunatics screaming about how stupid people are on TV. You know, it was always going to happen. It was uniquely a Boris triumph. No, it wasn't. It was a triumph of the people against Jeremy Corbyn and the hard-left Labour Party. Try imagining Tory leadership rival Jeremy Hunt risking a snap election. Yeah, granted, he wouldn't have been able to do it, but Boris couldn't do it without the people, let alone winning by a mile. But it didn't come out of a clear blue sky. At the very start, a poll showed Boris heading for his 80-seat majority. Then brave ex-Labour MP Ian Austin changed the weather by urging supporters to vote for Boris, not anti-Semitic Jeremy Corbyn. Meanwhile, ambitious wannabes Yvette Cooper, Keir Starmer and Stephen Kinnock stayed shabbily mute. The reason they stayed mute is because they knew Jeremy Corbyn would lose an election and then it might be their time to shine. Of course, we know if any of them go for the leadership, Labour have already lost, so let's hope they do. Political earthquake. The writing was already on the wall. It was obliterated only by an ugly cacophony of dissent led by Speaker John Bercow, amplified and exaggerated by the Brexit bashing corporation. Nabib's anti-Brexit, anti-Boris interviews relentlessly plugged Remain, as we all know, and this channel has covered on many occasions. We may now be seeing the beginning of the end for this spoon-fed media Goliath, which is something I said. They will back down on it now because more of a majority has said it. Maybe at least for a little while, but they'll definitely slow it down. It might come back in a year or so. It depends what happens in Parliament. And of course what their ideology wants them to do. Because as we know, it depends on the reporter. Because as we know, it depends on the reporter or editor of the show or newspaper, depending on what they might say. We can gloat at deflated Brussels too. The idea Boris will go soft and accept virtual EU rule is for the birds. Well, I don't know about that, but I'm hopefully won't. He won this election because millions of voters want Brexit done, that's correct. They don't want to be half in and half out. Nor do dozens of new Tory MPs who swore to back Brexit. There are no Remainers left. Well, I bet there are some of them, but hopefully they've either piped down or there's not enough of them to make a difference. Once out, we can forget about Scottish independence too. Canny Scots demonstrated in 2014 where their wallets lie. Thursday was a political earthquake. The tremors will be felt for a decade or more. Rewards are in line for those red wall voters who courageously backed Boris. They include millions of Sun readers, and I'm not going to read that, they're just bigging themselves up and the readers not interested. We will see Thatcher-style tax cuts for those low earners and better education, skills and training for their state school children. Top priority is the NHS. a 34 billion a year spending splurge, and a top to bottom management shake-up. This will be twinned with social care, a fast developing crisis for an ageing population. If we haven't eliminated the NHS as a political issue by the next election, we will have failed, says a top insider. Well, yeah, it's a good idea because every election Labour seem to use it, like claiming of course that they need to save the NHS. You can check, someone did the research on it the other day. Every single election for at least I think the last 25 or 30 years, we need to save the NHS. It's bollocks, obviously. The NHS needs saving, but not the way Labour are suggesting and not from what Labour suggest. The NHS needs saving from the amount of people that are here and allowed to come in here, which hopefully Boris and Brexit can prevent. The Bojo Revolution will tear up outdated planning laws, opening new road, rail and airport links across the Midlands and the North. Well, providing they benefit the Midlands and the North and don't cost us a shitload of money and get delayed, I'm all for it. But if they don't, spend it on something that actually will. In London you can get anywhere by public transport. Yep, London's fine, doesn't really need too much. I suppose there are a few things that it could do with, but there are other places that realistically need it a lot more. Now there is a £5 billion plan to reopen miles of mothballed rail track outside the capital and bring 500,000 people within walking distance of a station. UK and foreign investors have been waiting since the referendum to unleash a tsunami of job-creating spending. This is something we've all expected would happen, and given since the referendum we have had an increase in foreign investment, it is likely to be true. Traditional Labour supporters across the UK were blamed for abandoning Labour last week. We don't blame them, we love them for it. They have seen the light at the end of the tunnel and come out from Labour's bullshit that keeps them perpetually poor, so they continue to vote for their make-believe policies that will make them richer for doing nothing, of course. Although I expect the ones who do nothing are still Labour supporters, to be honest. You need to have at least some ambition in life to leave the Labour Party behind. Of course, couple that with the fact they're undemocratic and led by a terrorist sympathiser. The article continues, in fact, Labour abandoned them long ago, as we all know, and they've said to me many times on the channel through comments and both in the live stream. Ex-leader Ed Miliband handed the party lock, stock and barrel to a parasitic momentum cult. Parasitic momentum cult. Couldn't agree with him more. Those voters won't go back. Boris Johnson's job is to make sure they don't. Yeah, it's up to him. And here it says deepest red. Of all the demented smears concocted about Boris as PM, The Guardian's Jonathan Freedland takes the prize. Of course he's part of The Guardian. Smearing is what they do. They are literally the dirty, dirty smear merchants. Yes, he is angry with Jezza, but here's his take on a full Tory term. It will allow him to ignore the poorest and most vulnerable, the children going to school hungry, to abandon the people whose lives and communities have been made thin by a lost decade of austerity and shrunken services. A decade that will now stretch like a prison sentence to 15 years. As I said, 15 years before Labour can get back in. Even this Guardian shitweasel thinks it as well. What colour are the skies in this man's world? Deepest red, I assume, yep. And covered with Corbyn's hairy arsehole. And that's the end of the article there. I mean, it wasn't really that much of a gloat, it was a bit of a gloat, but we've been gloating more than that all weekend. And I do love a good gloat at the Labour Party, especially Jeremy Corbyn and the shitweasels around him that wanted to send this country down into the toilet with their crazy policies and hard left ideology. But I think we will have some more gloating to come when we have a completely new parliament and we get to see what Boris Johnson is really about. My only concern is that he won't keep his word and keep us out of political union with the EU in his future trade deal. And given that the EU said they're going to play hardball, which I will do a video on, hopefully he just ends up saying, you know what, bollocks to you, we're going on a no-deal Brexit. We'll see you all later, because he does have the majority to do that now, if he's so pleased. Or if the EU forced him into doing it, which they might well. Then we will find out, of course, if Boris really has the bollocks for it. But on that note, I will end the video there, guys. I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I'll see you all in the next one.
And Corbyn neutral by Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.